everyone, and welcome to the Christmas edition of the Avenger League weekly preview. With Christmas brings a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions. A lot of us talking to family members we don't particularly enjoy, people we haven't seen in a long time. But of course, the most emotional experience of them all, fantasy football, and more importantly, the final match of fantasy football. Disgusting to say. It brings true tears to my eyes to even just talk about this being the last match. But it is championship week. Some of us fighting for pride, some of us fighting for cash considerations, some of us fighting to have a purpose in life over the next 365 days. But it is the final week. Well, not the final week, second final week. As far as this recap goes, obviously none of these games are going final this week. I'll discuss the matchups, discuss the breakdown, but there's really no point in giving a prediction because, it's a 2-week thing. We'll see where we sit next week, and then we can kind of talk about predictions. As far as breaking it down, I'm going to go from least important game to most important game. So obviously we'll start with the Cameron and Trevor matchup because that was literally deciding nothing. Just pride, two people playing for pride. For Cameron, it's gay pride. For Trevor, Aryan pride, I guess. Yeah, we'll just get into that matchup very briefly. I probably won't even break it down. I'm just gonna go ahead and break that down. Cameron's team has been reeling. Saquon's looking tough. Kamara, the Saints are dead in the water. Trevor wins that matchup. There you go. There's the breakdown. I don't have to do it next week. So there's like 15 minutes off the docks. I do want to go into last week's games a little bit. Obviously, the biggest story of the fantasy season is Raleigh getting bounced in the semifinals. Just soul crushing turn of events for Raleigh. And honestly, it wasn't particularly all that close. He was up going into the second week. But that second week, man, it was just brutal. He was up 6 going in, around, it was like 5.5 to 6 going into the second week of the matchup. And Tim won by 14. So, a 20 point turnaround, crushing. So Raleigh has been welcomed back into the bitch zone. I actually just did it. Tim and Andrew are now excluded because their teams are winning. The loser of that match does get to take something home by being allowed back into the bitch zone. So everybody help remind me in 2 weeks to adjust permissions on that. As far as Andrew and Charlie's match goes, I did the math. I went and looked because their game in season was decided by 12/100ths of a point. So not even a full point. Their 2-week matchup was decided by 3.32 points. Andrew won both. A point differential of the entire season of 3.44. You'd be hard pressed to find any two teams that played, more than once this year. Actually, no, it got to be impossible to find two teams that played more than once this season that had a closer point differential than those two. Super even matchup. Andrew got the upper hand both times, barely. Just tough luck for Charlie. Charlie now 3 years in a row, all 3 years in the league, has made the playoffs and is yet to see a championship week. So Charlie is the Dallas Cowboys of the NFL, or of the fantasy league. Really tough to say. I'll say this about you: as compared to the Cowboys, your coach is a lot less fat than Mike McCarthy is. So that's good news. Other good news: your owner most likely not one cough away from death. So that's good. Bad news: you have the same amount of playoff wins over the last 5 years. So just really tough to see. And I would say of the two big games this week, which would be last place and first place, one of those matchups very much expected who was going to be there. They made it. Congratulations to myself and Ashley on achieving honestly just an impressive feat. They say in gambling and in betting, it's just as impressive to go 0% as it is 100. And yeah, I agree with that. You gotta have some real fantasy football prowess, some real knowledge, just a really high IQ to consistently set the wrong lineup and draft the wrong players. I mean, it's just honestly, it's impressive. So Ashley, congratulations on being the inverse second best team in the league, and I'll take my congratulations on being the best. So anyway, getting into the matchups. Like I said, I'm not going to do any predictions. I'm not really going to get into scores. Just going to kind of break down the first week and what we're looking at. Obviously, it's going to be a very busy week. Everybody celebrating Christmas, Christmas Eve. Games on Saturday. It's going to be wild. So like I said, we'll start with the least important and go to the most important games. And it's arguable, to say which is which. Obviously, the championship game I'm going to do last because it's by far the most important game. I think we'll start with the least important, in my opinion, which is fifth place. Fifth place, $25 match. Wade versus John. Wade, who going into the last week was, fighting for a playoff spot, had a chance to get into the playoffs, has just dominated the consolation bracket. Scored just through the roof. His point totals have been insane. And John, who had about a 2 or 3 week stretch of being the best team in the league, looking like he might get hot and make a playoff run, then, kind of cooled back off and mellowed out. And then obviously he dealt with some struggles early on that really put him in a hole that he couldn't get out of. But just, flipping through these matchups. I mean, tomorrow night, or I guess tonight, I don't know when whenever YouTube gets this fucking video uploaded, Trevor Lawrence playing the Jets. Trevor Lawrence has been on an absolute tear. Actually ever since I got rid of him. So thank you for that, I guess. 33 and 26 points in the last 2 weeks, going over 300 yards both weeks, 4 total touchdowns in each of those games. Adding a rushing touchdown, he's doing stuff with his legs. I mean, he truly looks like the prince who was promised when he was drafted and coming into the league. The Jets defense really solid, but he dropped 318 and 4 touchdowns on the Cowboys last week, who legit good defense. Not that the Jets aren't legit, but you get what I'm saying. Now Sauce Gardner on the edges isn't going to help things, but Trevor Lawrence looks like absolutely the real deal. And I'm a little bit early to say, but getting Calvin Ridley back next year, I'm going to put the Jags as a big dark horse in the AFC. He's kind of getting screwed playing in that division. If Trevor Lawrence was in the NFC, I think A, he'd be in the playoffs this year. B, who in the NFC is going to beat him? Eagles, maybe the Cowboys, 49ers. That's probably it. Think they beat the Vikings. Think they beat the Lions, Seahawks, any other dog shit team you want to put in there. AFC quarterbacks are just insane right now. On the other side, we get Geno Smith against Kansas City. Kansas City just gives up passing yards. They love to do it. Last week against Davis Mills, I don't even really know what he did, but the Texans were in that game. The Chiefs defense is in a pickle. Mahomes is winning them games, sort of. Last week they went to overtime with the Texans. Kansas City defense is not good. And in fact, on the other side, Trevor Lawrence, who I actually picked him up to play him against Kansas City, and 259, 2 touchdowns. Kansas City defense is outright not good at this point. Now, usually around this time of the year, they start to turn it around and kind of get ready for their playoff push. So we'll see if that happens. I don't think they're quite ready yet for it. So I do think Geno Smith could do some damage. I'm not saying the Seahawks are going to win this game by any means, because at the same time, the Seahawks defense has finally gone back to where they were at the beginning of the season, and Mahomes might throw for 500 yards. But I do think Geno has potential to put up, 20 to 25 points this week, easily against a pretty bad Kansas City defense. Probably going to be playing from behind, throwing the ball a lot. Going back over to Wade, Miles Sanders against Dallas. Sanders finally cooled off last week, 1.4 points, had 42 rushing yards, has negative 13 receiving yards. What the fuck? And lost a fumble. So, he had 4 points on the ground and then lost 3.3 everywhere else. So, just good for him, I guess. That was yikes. 1.4 points against Chicago, who should have been just a breeze to run through, coming off 29, 10, and 28 performances. So I mean, it is against Dallas, which makes me nervous. And in fact, they've played this year already. Oh, what did he do? What was it? Week like 7, week 6. 13.7. So very respectable performance out of Miles Sanders. Actually, that was the game that made me trade for him in the first place. So I don't expect him to go for one again, obviously, but the cat shoved a spring under the door. It scared the shit out of me. Don't expect him to go for sub 5 again, but just an interesting thing to keep an eye on. J.K. Dobbins against Atlanta. J.K. Dobbins was finally back last week. What did he do? 13.3, 125 yards. Just a very, very good, respectable performance against the Browns in what was just an awful game. The Browns defense is not great by any means. Better than Atlanta's though. So so he should, J.K. Dobbins should have another respectable performance. The Ravens can run the ball, and as long as Lamar Jackson's out, they can't throw it. So got to go somewhere. On the other side of for John here, on the other side of Trevor Lawrence, we have Travis Etienne against the Jets tomorrow night. Big game tomorrow night for these two, which is kind of good. Get it out of the way. Get your stars out early. You can watch them before you got to pretend to like your family and not watch football. Rest in peace, everyone out there whose family doesn't watch football. I don't know what you're gonna do. Last week, 11.7 points, 103 yards, 24 through the air. Did lose a fumble, his third of the year. Kind of a halfway bounce back game for him. Obviously, Dallas, good defense. The previous 2 weeks against Tennessee, who does have actually a really solid run defense, and Detroit, who sneakily has a pretty good defense. 6.1 and 3.2. Yeah, he's had just a tough stretch here. He had 3 yards against Baltimore. I didn't even see that. Jesus Christ. Is that the game? Yeah, that's the game he got hurt on like the second play, or the first drive at least. So he's had a really, really tough stretch here going, Ravens, Lions. By the way, sneaky good defense. Don't discount the Lions. Tennessee, bad defense, good run defense. And Dallas, just good all around defense. Really, really tough stretch here of games. Finally kind of got back to form against Dallas last week, who looked like they may be collapsing, maybe looking towards the Eagles a little bit. So we'll see what he can do against the Jets. I think the Jets might turn into the Trevor Lawrence show, which makes me nervous about Etienne. Although Etienne is a pretty decent receiving back, so he should still have some value there. Zay fucking Jones. Jesus Christ, I forgot about this stack. Yeah, he's had 4 touchdowns in the last 2 games, 3 last week, 109 yards, 31.9 points. Just insane. And 3 of Trevor Lawrence's 4 touchdowns went to him. He looks like he's probably around for a while, the real deal. So yeah, this is what has been Wade's dominant performance, is this stack of Zay Jones and Trevor Lawrence. On the other side, AJ Brown going up against Dallas. What did he do in that last game? 67 yards and a touchdown, 15.2 points. Pretty typical AJ Brown stuff. Once again, unless he's playing against me, when he puts up 27 and 36. Just very, very typical AJ Brown stats against Dallas last week, or last time they played. So kind of expect him to repeat that performance. AJ Brown is just a dog. Justin Jefferson. I think I put this stat in the Discord, but he needs to average 114 yards in the next 3 games to break Calvin Johnson's all-time record. Asterisk, obviously 17 games. Excuse me. Indianapolis. Sorry. Yikes. He just played Indianapolis, had 123 yards and a touchdown. Against, by the way, the number 1 secondary fantasy-wise in the league. Playing against New York this week, who is finally kind of turned into what we thought they were. They had a huge win against the Commanders on Sunday night to get back in the playoff picture. Right now, they're a playoff team. Looking like they will legitimately be a playoff team. But I mean, it's the Giants. They've got some flashes here and there. I don't know how you limit Justin Jefferson at this point. I mean, his worst performance so far. I mean, he had some stinkers at the beginning of the year, especially against Detroit in that week 3 game. But I mean, He's gone over 100 yards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks, and 1, 2, 3, 4 games over 150 yards. Had a 228 yard or 223 yard game. Had another game where he was at 184, 193. Has almost had 3 200-yard games this season. I mean, Justin Jefferson right now, for my money, is the best wide receiver in football. So, I personally think he'll probably break the record. I think probably one of these last 3 games, he probably goes for 150 to 170, and that'll just kind of lock it in. The only caveat being if they have everything locked up after week 17, as far as a 2 seed, I think they would be, because they're not going to catch the Eagles. I don't foresee. He may sit that game and miss out on the record, but kind of leaning towards if he's close to it, they may play him. I guess it depends on what he wants, what the team wants. DK Metcalf against Kansas City, the Geno Smith DK Metcalf stack. Last week had 55 yards, pretty measly performance, but that was against the 49ers. Kind of throw those stats out the window. The 2 weeks before that, he did score a touchdown against LA and Carolina for 22 and 15 points. And Wade did talk about Mark Andrews a little bit. Ever since Tyler Huntley's come in, he just hasn't been. He's been a very average tight end. He's still tight end 2 on the season, which is crazy because he hasn't broken 10 points in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bye week, 6, 7, 8 straight weeks. And only 3 of those has he gone over 5 points. Just so dominant at the beginning of the season. I guess it's making up for it. And the tight end class this year is pretty abysmal. Pretty much outside of Kelsey. I mean, Goddard was having a run there for a little bit where he was okay, but he got hurt. Zach Ertz got hurt. Kyle Pitts stinks and then got hurt. Osama's had a couple good. I mean, there's just no consistent tight ends. And Wade was talking about benching him. Whatever you're gonna find on the waiver wire is gonna get you 6 points. Unless it's the week where Evan Ingram has 32 or Jawan Johnson scores twice, or these random weeks that you can't predict. So gotta write it out with Andrews there. Speaking of tight ends that'll get you 5 to 6 points, David Njoku. He's good. I like David Njoku. Ramondre. Yeah. Oh my God, he had 172 rushing yards against Vegas. I didn't realize that. Holy shit. Although he did kick off arguably the worst play in football. So I'm going to take away 5 points there. He had 18 points last week, which is solid performance from him. And then Christian Watson doesn't know how to run routes, but he's playing Miami, who doesn't know how to guard routes, so he should be fine there. Wondering if... No, he's not, because Geno's playing Kansas City. Kind of wondering if old John there was going to try the stack again, but he's not. Anyway, like I said, it's a 2-week matchup. It's projected here 110 to 105. At this point, I don't know how you predict against Wade, but you got to stay hot for the full 2 weeks. So that would be my kind of motivation here for John is, see if you can survive an onslaught, and at some point Trevor Lawrence and Zay Jones have to cool off a little bit. We'll see if it's close. Going into what I would argue is the second least important game is third place. A matchup that we all predicted seeing as far as the 2 teams involved, just definitely not in the game that we foresaw it being. And actually, I didn't even notice this going back to Wade. Lamar Jackson is supposed to play this week, so Mark Andrews back on the menu, boys. We have Raleigh and Charlie playing for third place. Like I said, tough break for both these guys. You really hate to see it for just a very humble, just down to earth, just real solid human being for Raleigh. Charlie is playing in this game for the 3rd year in a row, as we mentioned. it's just brutal to see. At this point, it's they're playing in the Sugar Bowl. They were projected 1-2 all year, and now they're playing in the Capital One Bowl in Florida. Still two fierce competitors that you really like to see get after it, but just not the same luster it's had over the course of the season. The kind of rivalry that they've set up. Anyway, as far as the actual games go, Raleigh is finally getting Lamar Jackson back. Unfortunately, it's 1 week too late. At least it looks like it. He's still listed as questionable. Didn't practice Wednesday, so maybe not. Maybe he isn't coming back. Maybe the Ravens just figure they have a playoff spot locked and they let him rest for a couple more weeks. So we'll keep an eye on that. If not, we're going Kirk Cousins, who has dropped 400 yards in 2 straight games, 425 and then 460. He did have 2 interceptions last week in the 460-yard game, but still threw 4 touchdowns, 32.4 points. As long as you have Justin Jefferson on the field, you're a good quarterback. I don't care. I could throw for 200 yards if I had Justin Jefferson on the field. Joey B, Joey Burrow, Joe Shiesty, Joe Cool has put together a solid season. A lot of people are arguing him to be the top quarterback in the league because he's beat Mahomes 3 times. I understand the argument. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. He doesn't put up the same kind of numbers that Mahomes does. But I mean, 4 touchdowns last week. Consistently over 250, right around 300 yards. Last week he really didn't need to throw for 250, he threw for 200, but he threw 4 touchdowns. So just super consistent. Your QB4 on the year. In kind of the same boat as Kirk Cousins. Like, as long as you have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd and Hayden Hurst to some degree and Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine, you're going to be a good quarterback. On top of that, Joe Burrow is just legitimately a good quarterback. Unlike Kirk and Tua. RIP Tua. Well, I really don't need to talk about the rest of the game because Derrick Henry is playing against the Houston Texans. And now, normally at this point in the season, we would kind of be at the point where the Titans had the AFC South wrapped up. They don't really need to run Derrick Henry 30 times to make sure they win this game. But Jags are just right on their heels. The Titans have to win this one. And even still, the Jags can still catch them because I believe they play in Week 18. And the Titans get Dallas next week. So they win this one. Assume they lose to Dallas. Jags win both their next 2 games. That Week 18 game will be for the AFC South. So Derrick Henry's guaranteed 200 points. How many points was it last time they played? 219, 2 touchdowns, 35.3 points. So that's the bar I'm setting for Derrick Henry. If he gets anywhere under that, it's a disappointment. Pacheco against Seattle. I'm not going to pretend to try to know Kansas City running backs. I mean, Jerick McKinnon has been the hot hand. We'll see if that continues. Nick Chubb has stunk ever since Week 13. I didn't see any comments or any rebuttal on what necessarily changed in the Browns offense in Week 13 that may make them stink all of a sudden. But they do. He did have 99 yards against the Ravens though, so that was solid. What did Amari Cooper do last week? He had 58 yards. So whatever has changed in the Browns offense seems to be affecting him too. Once again, if anybody has any information on that, I would love to know. Oh yeah, I forgot Joe Burrow is just going to be canceled out by probably having Jamar Chase. Sorry, Charlie. All your points are going away. Good thing you have Derrick Henry playing the Texans, because Jesus fucking Christ. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Few solid good weeks in a row. He had back-to-back 20-point performances, followed it up by getting kept out of the end zone against the Vikings and the Jets. It's Carolina this week. Should have plenty of opportunity to score. The one thing there is I think the Lions are gonna just bludgeon the Panthers this weekend. So if it starts to get out of hand early, we may limit some of the passing windows there. Zeke against the Eagles. Eagles have kind of finally tightened up their run defense a little bit from where it was in the beginning of the season, so they have a lot of here. Their stats are kind of skewed as far as points allowed, just based on the first, like, it was like week whenever Jordan Davis got hurt, but now he's back. They have Sue, so the run defense is pretty stellar. And this is a week that I would worry about the Zeke versus Pollard debate. The last 2 weeks when you're playing the Texans and the Jags, it doesn't really matter. You start either one of them. Now I kind of lean into, well, which one are they going to lean on? Which one are they going to go for? Personally, once again, I would do Pollard. He's more explosive. Everybody knows it. We'll see what they decide to do there. George Pickens has been a bit of a disappointment the last couple weeks. Hasn't seen the end zone since week 11 against the Bengals. Hasn't crossed 10 points since that time, week 11 against the Bengals. We'll see if Charlie makes a change back to Leonard Fournette, who, I mean, had about the same as George Pickens. Leonard Fournette has a much higher floor, so we'll see if he makes that switch. Maybe Andy Isabella finally gets his shot. We'll see. As far as the first week here, 110 to 105, favored and for Charlie. If Lamar Jackson plays, I think it becomes a lot more even than that. Right now, they're projecting him 20 points, so they're projecting that he plays, but he did not practice this week. And actually, Aaron Jones has a designation too, so let's go and check that one out. Limited participant, knee injury. So something to keep an eye on there too. If he goes out, obviously Zeke fills in there. We probably see Mike Evans finally get back in the lineup. Maybe AJ. Oh wait, never mind. You just have AJ Dillon. Yeah, I forgot about that. AJ Dillon just goes in there. Oh, let's talk about AJ Dillon having 2 touchdowns last week. It would not have made a difference. He would not have beat Tim. Just very funny. 36 yards, 2 touchdowns, 35 receiving yards. Just funny stat lines. So now we jump into what I would consider the second most important game. Maybe a little bit of bias here because I'm involved. But we have the Duck. Combined the last 2 weeks, I've scored 140 points, which is fewer than a lot of people put up last week. So that's neat. I want to actually have a quick moment of silence for Jonathan Taylor. The Colts finally put me out of my misery and put him on IR. So I do appreciate that, of not having to worry or deal with any of the goings on there. Yeah, it's been a tough year. It just hurts. It hurts, man. Anyway, as far as the game, Justin Herbert against the Colts. Colts have a decent secondary. Somehow they're giving up. They're like number 1 against wide receivers, but number 22 against opposing quarterbacks. I don't know how to figure that one out. Last week, Justin Herbert, 2 really, really bad interceptions. Didn't throw a touchdown. Didn't score a touchdown. Somehow they won 17-4. So that's. I think Eckler had one, and did Sony Michel have one? Maybe Justin Jackson. Not Justin Jackson. He's on the line. Sony Michel and that other guy that got. Not Sony Michel. Austin Eckler scored one, and then whatever other running back they have not named. Oh, maybe it was Sony Michel. Anyway, 313 yards, so a decent yardage day. Just no production from touchdowns. So that sucks. Tom Brady against Arizona. Personally, I'm not even trying to reverse psychology here. Jared Goff is getting a start for me every single week over Tom Brady, but I'm also in dead last. So maybe we don't listen to my advice. Raheem Mostert against Green Bay. Raheem Mostert actually had a really, really solid week last week against Buffalo. Had 136 yards. Was kept out of the end zone, had 20 receiving yards, had 16.1 points. Getting Green Bay this week, who doesn't have a great rush defense. That game is in Miami, which is good news for the Dolphins. So, staying in the lineup this week. James Conner. I actually didn't watch this game. What's that doing? I don't remember. Um, yeah, he's been a monster since kind of coming back full time. His first week back, he had under 9 points, but then since then he's gone 22, 12, 19. Bye week, 20 points, 16. It's had a touchdown in all of those games outside of the first game back. Very, very much looking like 2021 James Conner. Just a touchdown monster. So he scares me. Tampa Bay rush defense is still okay. They're not formidable. They're not sit your stud against them like they used to be. David Montgomery against the Bills. You know, kind of the same story with the Bills, where like, beginning of the year it was like, oh, do I bench every single running back playing against the Bills? And at that time, yeah, but since like week 6, no. Bills have given up points. They just give up 16 points to Raheem fucking Mostert. So, Bears a great running team. David Montgomery should have a monster week. Last week he had 2 touchdowns, 22.6 points. Fully expect David Montgomery to have at least an average week, to solid week. The fucking Jets backfield. I don't know why I'm invested in it, but I am at this point. Bam Knight versus Michael Carter. I think they both had 3.5 points last week. Bam Knight's a little busted up. So he is listed as questionable, but he did fully practice Wednesday, and then like he didn't practice Monday and Tuesday. So I kind of just have to wait for Thursday night to see if I start Bam Knight or Michael Carter. Maybe I don't start either one of them. Maybe Jamal Williams gets in. Actually, that's probably what's going to happen. But at this point, who the fuck knows? And even Jamal Williams, I mean, his last 2 weeks, he's gone, he has gone 3.3 and 3.7 points. He literally went 35, 37, and 33 yards. It's just that week 13, he got his Jamal Williams touchdown. Hasn't had a touchdown in 2 weeks, and it is very much showing. So I'll rack my brain there and try to figure it the fuck out. Yeah, T. Higgins is awesome. So that's all there really is to say there. The only thing I can really hope for at this point against T. Higgins is that Jamar Chase eats up touches, which he kind of tends to do. So T. Higgins, I expect solid 9 to 15 points or so, with potential to go off. Jalen Waddle has had a rough couple weeks. Actually, no, he had a great week against Buffalo. What the fuck am I saying? Oh, he had that really long touchdown, didn't he? Yeah, he did. He had that really long touchdown. So, but the couple weeks before that against San Francisco and LA, the Chargers, and even against Houston, 85, 9, and 31 is his yardage totals, 11, 1.4, 4.1. Being his point totals last week, 114 and a touchdown against the Bills. But like I said, a lot of that came off of the long touchdown play. So Jalen Waddle obviously has potential to just run wild at any point whenever he wants to. It's just, can Tua get on the ball, and is Tyreek going to go for 200 yards? Both of those, I think, are very reasonable questions to ask. On my side of things, Mike Williams, he struggled last week, and that's kind of the problem with having a stack, obviously. Justin Herbert kind of struggled, didn't throw a touchdown, which means Mike Williams caught nothing. Now he did have a fucking awesome catch to seal the game, so that was great. And then obviously the week before, his first week back from injury, 116 yards and a touchdown. This week against Indianapolis, who is pretty good against wide receivers, on Monday night, so that'll be fun. And then CeeDee Lamb against Philly. The last time they played Philly, had 68 yards, had 10.2 points. However, it should have been like 24 points because he was running wide the fuck open on a little go route. Would have been, I think, a 65, 70 yard touchdown. And Cooper Rush underthrew the ball by about 20 yards and it got intercepted. Dak Prescott makes that throw, I think. At least doesn't get intercepted. Jesus fucking Christ, it was awful. So he has shown potential to go off against Philly. He was cooking Darius Slay that whole night. He just Cooper Rush. Yeah, there's no real. Oh, Taysom Hill. Actually starting Taysom Hill. Well, that'll be fun. And then Scary Terry versus Jerry Judy. Terry v. Jerry, Jerry v. Terry. Sounds like a buddy fucking cop movie. Anyway, Terry McLaurin had a very average week last week, 70 yards, 10 points on the nose. I love Terry McLaurin. He's really good. But he is he's playing. Shit. All right, that's TBD. I'll probably start Terry still, but just ooh, I don't love that. God, I still have the Packers defense in against me. Ugh. Somebody tell me to get my fucking shit together. Jerry Judy against LA. Jerry Judy, with Brett Rippon last week, still had 76 yards. I mean, very solid numbers. 73 and 76 yards. He kind of he's always around that 70-yard range. He is a 65 to 70-yard machine. So touchdown dependent, 70 yards. That's what Jerry Judy is. Right now, the website has it projected 99.44 to 96.39 in favor of Ashley. So one of the closer projections, I'll give it that. And very telling that this is the one game where both teams are projected under 100 points. Now, finally, 36 minutes into the playoff preview, we have Timothy Adam versus Andrew Smith Campbell. And one of the worst timed playoff benchings possibly of all time. Week 1 of the fantasy championship, Jalen Hurts goes down. I think they're calling it a AC joint sprain, which means this is the same thing Bryce Young. Same thing Bryce Young had earlier this year. He only missed one game. Came back and put up 50 points on Tennessee. Tennessee also put up 54 points on Alabama, but we don't talk about that part. So hopefully he'll be back next week. Kind of fitting that he misses the Dallas game. And actually, I didn't even talk about that with AJ Brown. But Gardner Minshew's a gunslinger, so dog. So we're starting Brock Purdy against the Commanders. Brock Purdy last week, 16.48 points. The week before, 21 points. He's not getting a rushing touchdown there. I mean, with the 49ers offense, the way it's set up and the way it's run, your floor is so high as a quarterback. You just get it to your skill position guys. Technically counts as a pass and let them go. Josh Allen against the Bears. Holy shit. I said last week was going to be a get-right game for Josh Allen against Miami. And it was. He did lose a fumble, but he had 77 yards rushing, 300 yards passing, 4 passing touchdowns. Went on an incredible drive at the end where he just refused to lose the game. He just looked at the football and said, I will not lose this game. And he didn't. So, Josh Allen could put up 35 points again against the Bears. That would terrify me if I'm Andrew. Actually, Andrew, projections, buddy. Looking a little lackluster without Jalen Hurts in the lineup. Dalvin Cook, really, I'd almost say Tim outscored him by 20. Dalvin Cook had 25. 95 yards rushing, 95 yards receiving. That long receiving touchdown, did lose a fumble, 25 points on the nose, all of that in the second half. It was an insane week for the Vikings, so a lot of those numbers are obviously outliers. But still, just monster week from Dalvin Cook. Austin Eckler is Austin Eckler. He just scores touchdowns. That's what he does. So much receiving upside. Austin Eckler. I talked about Zeke earlier with Raleigh's team. We have the other side of it here with Tony Pollard and Andrew's team. Like I said, this is the one week where I would worry about the Tony versus Zeke. Like if I had them both, I would play Pollard. I mean, and I don't think that's groundbreaking to anyone. I think that's pretty common. Just you're taking a risk. Luckily, neither one of these people have both. They can play both. Play either one of them. But I don't think this is a week where we see 15 and 15 from both of them. I'm thinking more of like a 18 points from one, maybe 7-8 points from the other. They're both going to get their touches. It's really a matter this week of who gets the touchdowns, because I don't think the like elite yardage going to be there against Philly and a pretty solid defense. Like I said, personally, I would hand the ball to Pollard 30 times. That's just me. Jerry Jones obviously has different ideas, and he has a lot more money than I do. So, maybe we listen to him. I wonder how his fantasy team's doing. Juju Smith-Schuster had a really average week last week. Did lose a fumble, lost him some points there, but 11.8 points, 88 yards. He's always got a solid floor because Patrick Mahomes is throwing on the ball. Garrett Wilson. Oh, Timmy. I mean, last week I guess he did have 98 yards. All right. If Mike White was the quarterback, I would love this play. With Zach Wilson, I can't trust him. So, I mean, you don't really have another option. Your other option is Curtis Samuel against the 49ers. And I agree, you mentioned him. Josh Palmer, boom or bust. All right, I guess Garrett Wilson. I guess we're doing that. Good luck. Gabe Davis. Good luck. I mean, last week against Miami, 56 yards. He had a touchdown in week 13 against the Patriots where he only had 15 yards. Gabe Davis' train has fallen off hard since the 30-point game. He went for 30. He went for 14.9. In week 10, he went for 18. All those other weeks, he's under 5. He's under 6 a lot. I mean, if there's a team where you're gonna have a Gabe Davis game against, I was gonna say it's the Bears, but he always does it again in big games. Pittsburgh, I get it. Pittsburgh's not a good team, but historically, a program that demands respect, franchise that demands respect. And then against Kansas City the next week, he did it. 18-point game against Minnesota, big game. Call it big game, Gabe. And this is not a big game, so sorry, bud. It is a big game. Is Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce is the scariest man in this whole lineup, and a man that could flip this whole thing. Because Evan Ingram, I'm sorry to tell you, Tim, is probably not going to repeat his 33-point performance. He did have a solid week last week again, 62 yards. As long as Trevor Lawrence is playing out of his mind like he has been, obviously a lot of upside there. So, and a pretty high floor. So, I don't hate Evan Ingram, but if Andrew wins this game, this is the tight end matchup is where you need to keep your eyes on. Normally it would be quarterback. Oh, I didn't even talk about Joe Mixon. Actually, you know what? That was on purpose. Fuck Joe Mixon. Obviously, the Josh Allen versus Jalen Hurts would have been incredible to see. Hopefully, we'll get to see it next week in the finale. And hopefully, it's not, hopefully it's not out of hand at that point. But that does make me nervous. But Jalen Hurts versus Josh Allen would have been one of the better fantasy matchups we've seen on the year. And we haven't seen it since week 1. These two teams haven't played since week 1. Pretty incredible. They get to start and end their seasons together. They should kiss, honestly. Brian Robinson, kind of halfway has taken over the backfield. 89 yards last week, 18 more through the air. Looked really, really good. 12 carries. Problem is he's playing the 49ers. Best defense in football. I don't see how the Commanders are going to run the ball this week. And it's kind of scary for me and Terry. McLaurin, that is. Because the Commanders are not a team that needs to drop back 40 times, especially against a really, really good pass rush in the 49ers. They may get goosed. The Commanders might not put up a point this week, and they got to go to San Francisco. That's going to be an ugly game. That's going to be brutal to watch. I feel bad for them already. Actually, a really interesting question I just posed in the middle of this. Is Red Zone going to be on Saturday this year? Not that it matters because I'll be doing Christmas Eve shit, but like, Red Zone going to be on Saturday this year? Maybe something to look into. Like it has to be. Najee Harris against Las Vegas last week. Najee, he's got a questionable by his name. Did not practice Wednesday. Yeah. If Andrew loses Jalen and Najee, I'm putting an asterisk next to Tim's championship. And if he loses against Andrew without Jalen and Najee, yikes. So we'll keep an eye on Najee, but like I said, every week, 9 to 12 points. Last week he had 14. He broke out. Big breakout game for Najee. 86 yards and a touchdown. Good for him. 9 to 12 points against Las Vegas. Actually, I'm gonna raise that cap a little bit because Las Vegas is so bad. So I'm gonna add 3 points to the total. Actually, gonna be 12 to 15 if he plays. Right now the website has a projected 110 to 98. Obviously the Jalen Hurts loss is tough. Oh, actually, Andrew, while I've got you here, while I've got your attention, actually, this is not the week to do it. Never mind. DJ Moore against Detroit. I think I missed him too. That's a good play. I like that. I was gonna tell you to put Adam Thielen in for Gabe Davis again, but you've trusted Gabe Davis this far this year. Might as well trust him again. But against Chicago, that's a week to trust him. So there you go. Like I said, I'm not making any predictions this week because none of the games are going to end this week. But really, really exciting 2 weeks of football coming up. Obviously, just right in the middle of Christmas Eve. The finals will be during New Year's, so we'll even see if anybody's fucking conscious for the finales here. But Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy holidays. Enjoy time with your family. And when you're ready to stop talking to them, enjoy time with Scott Hanson and football. Merry Christmas.